Hello, hello, hello. So I do my best to try to plan these, right? And send messages so people know, but other times just catch the moment when it comes. And this was a live for me. Oh, it's Corrine. Yay! So catching the moment as it comes. Absolutely. If you're joining, if you're here live, I love questions. I love comments. I love like all the engagement. I love shares about your life. So, please bring it. I love to have this be more of a dialogue, as much of a dialogue as it can be, given that I'm the only one who can talk. Let's put it that way. That always cracks me up. And if you're watching the replay, please engage as though you were live. However, maybe give a little context to your comments because I'm not live knowing what I'm saying in the moment. So sometimes I get a little confused. Oh, hi, Emily. Yeah, so I'm excited. So this is sort of a pop-up and I'm excited to see who I catch and who catches me and see where we go. So this is as always, actually, in some way, this is a bit of a weaving and it's the way my mind works, honestly. If any of you are ever curious, it's like often, yeah, my friend Garrison used to make fun of me. He wasn't making fun of me. I think he was appreciating me, but it became a running joke that anytime anyone would ask me a question, I would like pause and then I'd be like, two things. And sometimes I'd be like, wait, three. So there were always these different streams. And there was a period of time where I had this idea that I should niche myself, and I was considering calling myself a wholeness coach. Actually, at this point, I'm just like, somebody asked me the other day, they were like, so you're a life coach? And I was like, yes, I'm a life coach. That's what I do. Because I just couldn't even go there. But the reason that the word wholeness resonated for me, the reason that I was considering using that was really this idea of like, I just don't believe that the parts of our lives are separate from each other. We're certainly not separate from each other, me from you, from as human beings, but also the parts inside of ourselves are not separate. So this idea of, I like to play with this idea of sacred sovereignty, because sovereignty so often sounds like it's like me alone, unto myself, not needing anything, and that's somehow the ideal state. Especially in Western culture in the United States, am I getting as choppy for you as I am for me? There can really be almost this ideal of somehow being self-contained, and I don't believe that. So I call it sacred sovereignty because I truly believe in what is our sovereign self, but the sacred part of it is like, first of all, yeah, not being disconnected from all the other human beings around us, but there's something to me, like when we acknowledge that none of this exists, like there is no self-created self, there's no self-created world, there's no, self-made man, there's something absolutely divine and mysterious, like mysterious that I even get to exist in this moment. But then I do exist in my own separate body. So here's this idea of sacred sovereignty. And I know there's other people who have talked about kind of like, being turned on and expanded on that. And I've always been a little turned off by the phrase like turn on or turn your, but my friend said to me the other day, I was sitting in the car with my friend. I don't remember why we were in our car, but I was driving and I turned to her and I was telling her, I was taking her to yoga class. And, but I was sharing about that I recently hired a financial consultant. Like, I want to buy a house, kind of tracking my money and really having like, that's been something I've never really done. There was a short period where I did it, kind of got off on it. But there's a woman in a group that I'm part of called 4PC who was talking about like looking at money like this, and I was like, that's me. She's describing me. And so really this idea of taking the blinders off, and I want to like see what's coming in. I want to see what's coming out. I want to know what it is. I want to like, and with my financial consultant, I came up with this phrase, financial fearlessness. There's a lot of around the idea of financial freedom, and I was using that phrase. This is a lot of setup for a short story about being turned on, but hopefully it resonates in some way for you. But I was sort of saying like, well, there's the financial freedom, and that sounds good, and it's kind of like who wouldn't want to be financially free? So I guess that's what I want. Can you help me? And then through our conversation, the phrase that came out was like, oh, I know what I want. It's financial fearlessness. It's less about like the freedom part, and it's like, I want to, this, even when I'm not looking, it's all working over there, I guess it's okay. There's still this anxiety, or like maybe it'll stop working, or I don't really know why it's working. And so financial fearlessness. And so I was sharing with my friend about this. And then I told her that what I said to my financial consultant was at some point, because he's also a coach, he was like, what would make this conversation, what would make this like a life-changing conversation? And I was like, I don't know. There's like these tips and tricks, and I want to know how to do this. And what about an IRA? And blah, blah, blah. And then somehow through the conversation, something happened, and I was like, oh my God, I know what I want. Like, what would make this a life-changing conversation is I want to fall in love with tracking my finances, and I want sticking to a budget. Or maybe I said I want to fall in love with sticking to a budget, and I want tracking my finances to be like an ecstatic experience. Somehow it was basically like, I want to fall in love with this process, and I want it to like just be fucking like ecstatic, basically, to be in relationship with my finances. And so I said this to my friend, and she looked at me and she was like, you're really good at turning yourself on, Kendra, like knowing how to. And what I got when she said that was like, I'm really good at knowing how to light myself up and somehow find my way to the thing that'll be like, well, that would be fucking fantastic. And it was like, taking something that first of all could seem like drudgery, right? Tracking my finances or sticking to a budget. It's kind of like sticking to a diet, right? Like, and I was like beyond the realm of just sort of what seemed like I could do within that. Like, well, it'd be great if I set up this other bank account, or if I had my IRA, or if I, like all these would feel really good. But I was like, oh my God, what if it could just be ecstatic? Like, what if, checking all the little, like every day, what did I spend, and keeping track and like sticking to this budget? What if like I just like that was like, like an orgasmic experience every day. And when she said that to me, when she said like, Kendra, you're really good at knowing how to turn yourself on, which again, the way I knew what she meant, she kind of clarified, but I knew what she meant. What she meant was, make all the pieces of my life alive and find whatever it's going to take to do that. I was like, yes, this is actually a key piece that I hope I bring into my teachings. I know that I try to bring in, and I hope I'm transmitting in some way, but I hadn't named it in this way, is how do we take what we want in our lives and find what's underneath that will make it alive. And it's this dance. So again, this comes back to sacred sovereignty. I warned you at the beginning, it's always like this, like it's always a weave. It's like pulling the string from over here and then pulling the string from over here. And it's like, and what do they make together? But to me, this is the sacred sovereignty, is like knowing that I can do that. It doesn't mean that I don't want or that I'll never get, or that I shouldn't long, like somehow not longing that, you know, the people I'm in relationship also bring me alive, or that I don't need help, right? Like I hired a financial consultant. That's actually, I consider that to be part of sacred sovereignty, is the capacity, the willingness, the self-awareness to go like, I need help in this area. But could he, so somehow in relationship with him, I was able to come to, I want to fall in love with tracking my finances, and I want sticking to a budget to be an ecstatic experience. So I generate that, but I generated it with him, and I knew enough to know I need help. I need help in this area. And to even, you know, to let people know how they can help us. And that's very different than like, now you need to do this and now you need to do this, like where I'm like, still, I mean, that's so exhausting, right? So exhausting to be telling everyone what they need to do all the time to meet our needs. But that there's this way, and again, with my financial consultant, it was this thing of where he was like, well, I don't want to be your accountability coach. I want to, you know, I want you to be so inspired that I don't need to be your accountability coach. And I said, well, that's great. Like, I totally get what you're saying. Like, let's totally seek for the inspiration. And I'm a human being, like the being that I am. I love assignments, you know, like we had our first call, and he gave me homework, and like I did, you know, kind of like you know, star student, pick me. I know the answer. And like I took his homework and just ran with it. And it was like, but knowing that I had, and sometimes I think we go like, gosh, I could have done that on my own and saved, you know, $10,000 that I paid my coach, or that I paid my consultant, or that I paid my, and then I could have that money, right? But I recognize that it's in that dynamic. And in some ways, you know, I think there's a lot of misuse of this leverage around how we become committed to things when we pay for them. People say like, well, you know, make them pay a lot so they're more committed. And it's like, But that it's actually in this exchange. So there's the sacred part, like it's not just all alone on my lonesome trying to figure it out and do it, but there's something in the, that it's there's a sacred exchange. But there's something in sacred sovereignty that goes like, and I'm not consciously or unconsciously abdicating the responsibility for feeling alive to someone or something else. Well, you know, if only this would happen, then I could, you know, then this would be ecstatic, or then I could feel good, or then like these circumstances need to change in order for me to live. I was already, even in just naming that I wanted tracking my finances, like to fall in love with tracking my finances and sticking to a budget to be an ecstatic experience, I felt like fucking ecstatic. I was so excited about even the challenge of that. I was like, well, how am I going to do that? Like, how am I going to make that feel so amazing? And that gave my coach and my financial consultant, that gave him like information about how to work with me so that I can have more of that. But like, even just in saying I wanted that, I had it. And I believe that is so much of what I want to bring in the teaching of sacred sovereignty. And specifically for women, it's so much about what I bring into the sacred sovereignty weekends. Are the practices, the tools, the ways of relating to each other that actually develop what I would call sacred sovereignty within ourselves, and develop the way of relating within what I would call sacred sovereignty, where I'm not blocking other people out, and I'm not trying to like, I can do it all on my own and I don't need anybody's help and I'm sovereign being. But where I also am not abdicating like the response of like, please, please make me feel alive. Like I just need someone else to do something, or I need these circumstances to shift, and sort of like a very woe is me. I don't know how to feel good unless someone else does something. And that I really believe that that's an alive dynamic, and that there is, but that ultimately there's a piece that someone else can spark it in us. And I've definitely had that. I've had it where someone can spark something in me, but I need to make it become alive in myself. And kind of like the stories, the ancient stories, I think about, like, I think there's stories of like Coyote stealing fire. And then ultimately the way that we have to tend this fire in ourselves, this like very sacred light and heat and warmth, right? Turn on. It's like a light and a heat and a warmth. And in some way, I really do believe that that is, it's our, like, it is our own responsibility to tend. And I want to say protect, but I don't mean protect like it needs to be guarded and protected from, all the people who want to take it from us. It's more like it is sacred, and you don't just leave a little coal that's going to be the fire that for the winter. You don't leave that and be like, oh, it should just stay lit, in the rainstorm. We go like,